The best mouse is obviously the one you play best with, as in you have to find what works for you. However, I've been playing FPS games with a mouse for over 26 years, mostly Quake, and I've realized something. First of all, I'm not going to talk about the tech or build quality or the usual stuff in this video. Mice are so good these days it's barely worth mentioning. This is just about what I think can help you aim better. Let me explain. In the early days of reviewing mice, I aimed best with the mice that were twice as long as they were wide. And when I say wide, I mean grip width, where you actually put your fingers. So if a mouse was 12 centimeters long, and 6 centimeters at the fingers, that was a 2:1 ratio that made it easier to aim. But I also noticed that I aimed really well with the FK2 in certain situations, better than other mice. And the FK2 is actually longer than it should be. Instead of 2:1, it's more like 2.23:1. If you had a mouse that was 1:1, so it was a square or a circle, I would say your aim would be worse. And the reason is similar to why I say you should go for a smaller mouse. Because the easier it is to move, the less stable it is, and therefore it's easier to move across the pad. The problem is you do want stability still, because if it's too easy to move across the pad then you don't have control. So that means if you're playing a game where you have to aim up and down, left and right all the time and equally, then a 1:1 mouse would actually be good. And the smaller you go, the harder it's going to be to control. I know this is sounding like a contradiction so far. Smaller, easier to aim, less control. But that's why I think the 2:1 ratio is so important. Because it's true, you want to be able to move the mouse left and right, but you still want it to be stable, so where can you put that extra size? The answer? On the length. See, in most of our games, a lot of our aiming is left and right, or flicking between angles. You want that freedom to move left and right, while still remaining stable. You're not really aiming up and down too much. Maybe in games like Quake, and possibly Apex, you might want a slightly shorter mouse, so it allows you to have those up and down movements a bit easier. But in games like Counter-Strike, Valorant and other tactical shooters, you actually want less movement on the vertical and more on the left and right. So with mice like the FK2, with that extra length, you get that extra stability while still being free to move left and right. So before I give these recommendations, I want to say you should use smaller mice. About 60% of your hand measurements is a good start. Once you figure out the general size, try to find a mouse that is more than twice as long as it is wide. Now obviously I'm not a CS player, but my Quake clanmates play CS, I talk to CS players a lot, and I've watched enough CS to have a decent understanding of the aim. And as I said, it also applies to Valorant and other games like that. Not so much Apex or Quake unless it suits your playstyle. So which mice are best? If we use my website to check the numbers, length and grip width, we see the Finalmouse Ultralight X that is 12.1 by 5.67, which is 2.13:1. So that's a solid pick. The Asus Harpe Ace is 2.21:1, also another solid pick. Pretty much all of them have over a 2:1 ratio. You can't go wrong with the top mice, it just depends what you want. Even my mouse design through Xtrfy, the MZ1, which isn't on the actual list due to potential bias, has a 2.1:1 ratio. And just for the record, legendary CS player Forrest is using the MZ1. I hadn't spoken to him before I found that out, so there's no bias there. He actually chose it. So yeah, shout out to Forrest and the Xtrfy MZ1. Clearly great for Counter-Strike, which does seem helped by the ratio, but I can't include it in the actual list due to bias. And there's more to a mouse than just a ratio. So here are my top 5 based on that and also the shape and overall use. And number 1, the Zowie FK2. I haven't tested the new wireless version yet, but I'm very familiar with the shape and I have tested the U2. Should be the same, and a friend of mine has one already, says it's good. So with a ratio of 2.23:1, I want to say the Zowie FK2. I won't say the wireless version yet, you can wait for my review on that. But if you really want to get one early, from what I hear it's all good, so you should be okay. But if you really want to be safe, I'll get to the review when I can. And number 2, the Asus Harpe, which is basically a G Pro X, ratio of 2.21:1. And number 3, the Razer Viper V3, that has a ratio of 2.18:1. And number 4, Finalmouse Ultralight X, 2.13:1. And I better give the Ergo EC2 type mice a shout out, because clearly they're good for CS. So 5, the Death Adder V3 is 2.11:1, but you could change that out and put the actual EC2 wireless in there, the Ponage Stormbreaker, the Vaxi E1, Fnatic Thorn, Pulsar X-Lite V3, and so on. All of these mice are really good. Anyway, the list is kind of irrelevant. This video is more about just getting that point across to help you in your search. So if you're looking for a new mouse for CSGO or Valorant, where you don't have to aim so much up and down, it's more side to side, then I would recommend trying to find one that has 2 times the length as it is wide, or even more if you can. That's not taking into account mouse feet, weight, sensor placement and all that. So stay tuned, I'll get to all those videos eventually. Lots of videos coming, especially as I've been really trying to improve my aim lately. trying to get back into my best form. And of course, if you want to find a mouse for you, or check out the full reviews of the mice I talked about in this top 5, you can go to my website, use the mouse search, just know your hand size, or check the top mice list. The review videos are on the mouse pages, so just click whichever and see if it can suit you. So I hope that helps. Use your links below, sub, like and share, and I'll catch you in the next.
Last standing. 2 frags in 2 seconds. Revenge. Blue wins the round. Accuracy.